Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new New England 100 Highest adventure. Today I am back with Joe, and we are going to bag Mount Nancy. At least that's the plan. There is some fresh snow on the trail. Looks like someone has been on it, but not since the most recent snow, so we'll see how that is. We are starting out with the snowshoes today. As you can see, the snowbank here at the trailhead is fairly high. I'm kind of standing up, towering over the sign. But it's supposed to be a very beautiful hike. There's going to be some waterfalls and some ponds that we're going to go by on the way to the summit of Nancy. So we are both very stoked for today's hike. I am excited to bring you along. So let's go. So we didn't even make it a mile before. Looks like whoever had previously gone on the trail must have turned around, because after we hit a little stream crossing, and after that we've pretty much just been breaking trail the whole way. We're just kind of taking turns, going back and forth. Snow's pretty deep. It's definitely consistently a foot, if not much more. But boy, is it beautiful out here. The temperature I will put on the screen right now, but it's plenty warm enough, that's for sure, especially breaking trail. So it's kind of slow going, but we got plenty of daylight left, and we're not in a rush today. We're just enjoying being out here, so I'm gonna keep on pushing forward. Wow, look at these birches. Bent right over. Look at that one. Ooh, what's this? Interesting. Well, there's the snow depth chart. That's how deep it is. We got to the upper cascade, which required a lot of climbing. It does a few switchbacks to get up there because the terrain rises pretty steeply from the bottom up. You do a switchback, you get to the lower cascade, do another switchback into the middle cascade, do another one, two more actually, and then you get to the upper one, which you couldn't really see. But anyway, we got to the top of that. It took so long and so much effort because of how steep and how deep the snow was. Every step you had to take very slowly, very carefully to try to pack down the snow so you could get down to where you had traction. And the snow is well over 2 feet deep, especially like in this section. It's not bad, I can stay on top, but going up the really steep sections, you really have to sink. You do sink down, and you have to sink yourself down so that you can get up it. So anyway, it's taken us a lot longer than expected to get up here, breaking all this trail. Now it's relatively flat all the way to Nancy Pond. There's a couple ponds, and that's all flat until you get to the herd path for Mount Nancy. So we may not be making the summit today. We are 5 hours in and not even halfway done with this hike. So we're gonna be getting to the point where we have to turn around probably pretty soon. Hopefully we'll make it to the pond by that point. But we just have to, we have to make the right call and make sure we have enough energy to get out of here and enough daylight. Definitely is a whole new challenge when you have all unbroken trail, and the further up in elevation you go, the deeper the snow gets. So that's what we're working with right now. This section is beautiful to go through though. The sun's kind of poking out, there's snow everywhere, and it is much easier to cross this trail and cover this trail. Much more enjoyable for sure. So I'm gonna keep pushing toward the pond, see how far we make it, and keep you updated. Okay, it's time to break down what happened next. So I made it to Nancy Pond, but let's back up for a minute. So I got to the top of the upper Nancy Cascades. At this point, Joe was still with me, and we kind of talked about it. He was feeling like it was really time for him to turn around. And we had had a couple discussions prior to this about how he was feeling, and each time, we made another push. First, we pushed to the lower cascade, then to the middle cascade, and then to the upper cascade. But at the upper cascade, he was really feeling like it was probably time for him to turn around. But after having a little bit of time to just take a breather, he decided he still wanted to push forward, push to Nancy Pond, and then at that point, he was absolutely going to turn around. So I said, okay. He was kind of like, if you want to keep going forward, that's cool. So I went ahead of him. Said we'd meet at the pond, and I got like halfway there, and I kind of stopped for a little bit to see if he would catch up to me, and he didn't. So I kind of had a feeling he probably had decided to turn around, which made sense. Um, so I decided I still wanted to go as far as the pond at least, so I could see the pond and just catch up to him afterwards. And that was kind of our plan. There was an understanding there. So I made it to the pond, and it was absolutely beautiful. Just it was all frozen over, and the snow, and there's a nice view of Mount Nancy. So, fortunately, I had brought my backpacking stove with me because I intended to make my lunch on the summit or somewhere that would be a good lunch spot. I intended to make like a nice hot meal. So, I had a decision to make at this point. I could either sit down, enjoy the view, make my lunch, and just have like a good hot meal to fuel me up for uh, the hike out, or I could continue on to Norcross Pond, which is the second pond you come to on the way to Nancy, at which point the terrain goes from being very flat, because after the climb up to the upper cascade, it just kind of flattens out to the ponds. So, but after that, it gets real steep again, and you have another 1,000 feet that you have to climb to the summit of Nancy. And it's also it's a herd path. It's technically a bushwhack, but not really, I guess. But anyway, I kind of thought about it and didn't really think with the time that we had left remaining in the day that I could get up there and back and be able to catch back up to Joe. It just seemed like a lot, and with how deep the snow was, I mean, you saw some of the post holes I sank into. I was up to my waist at one point. Just didn't think, even though I was feeling very strong physically and mentally on this hike, I decided it probably wasn't worth it. It was probably better to just enjoy the view, take in the scenery, and be happy with where I was at. This was significant for me though, because if you've been watching the channel, I've hiked the entire New England 67, and not one time on that hike, or on any hike for that matter, have I had to turn around and bail out on the hike. I've had a couple times that were kind of close, but so far, up to this point, I had always made it to the summit. So, in the moment, in some ways, this felt like a defeat. It felt like, for the first time, I was failing to meet my goal. But somehow, even in the midst of that, I still felt good. I still felt good about the hike. So, I had my lunch. I turned around. I headed back. Goodbye, Nancy Pond. Nancy, I'll be back for you. Eventually caught up with Joe again. The hike back out was much nicer because we had already broken the trail out. The descent down along the Cascades was really good, although it was very difficult to get up there. It was a very quick descent. And the more I hiked and the more I thought about it, I was really content with the day. I didn't feel like I had missed out. Like, of course, I wanted to bag the summit that day. I never really want to have to turn around and leave the summit behind. But I got to see waterfalls. I got to make it to the pond. I got to have an awesome lunch at the pond. I got outside for like 9 hours and got some really good exercise. Got to see so much snowy landscape. And I got to spend time with Joe, and we had a good day together. So, in my book, that's a win. We stayed safe. We, listened to our bodies. We took, the daylight into consideration, which I think is something that's important to mention. When you're doing these big hikes and you're going after all these peaks and these lists, it's easy to get in the mindset of just, oh, it's just so important that I make it to the top. Well, it is, but it's more important that you have an enjoyable hike and that you have a safe hike. And at the end of the day, we were safe. We made it out, no problem. Still had plenty of daylight left when we got out. And we both were quite content. So I just want to break this down for you, kind of share my feelings, as this is the first time that I have encountered this before. But this is not the end of Mount Nancy. I will be back most likely in the summer to tag the summit, and hey, I get to see it in a whole different season, and I get to see the waterfalls again, I get to see the ponds again, so it's really a win in the end. Done. But guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, it would be awesome if you could leave a like down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I love making these videos, regardless of how many people are watching them, but it would be really cool to get more people on board. So if you've been watching, or you're maybe watching this for the first time, you're not subscribed, consider doing so. I would really appreciate it. But until next time, stay inspired, stay creative, and I will see you next time in a much warmer place. Alright, see you later.